For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Dan Weber for instant analysis of USC's first fall camp practice of 2019. It was a no shoulder pads, no pads practice as expected when they're first coming back to practicing. Tomorrow's practice will be no pads as well. The first day is kind of overwhelming, Dan. There's a lot to take in, but let's just get your overall thoughts first off. What did you think about today's practice?
Well, I'll play off something you just said when we were talking about the practice. It was the kind of practice that had they had pads on, they might have done the same thing. I mean, it was I thought, aggressive, competitive, quick-paced. Not your typical first practice. It looked like, like with the defensive backs, they were bringing them over on Howard Jones Field and putting them in coverage and expecting them, to react exactly correctly as a group to whatever the quarterback did, for example. Not the kind of thing maybe you normally see teams do on day one. So I thought they were, pretty far along in a lot of ways. And I thought they competed really well. And I agree with, we talked to Clay afterwards, and he said that the period that he was most excited about, and I totally agree, was the one-on-one passing. I just thought, and they opened with that fairly quickly after they'd gone through all the, kind of preliminary drills and stuff, and that's usually, that's a tough deal. I mean, that's guys are trying to show what they can do, and they're going all out, and there's always some, risk. I mean, a lot of teams, I think USC's one of them, don't even let them do that in summer. So because there is, the risk of somebody getting injured. So I thought they really went after one another in one-on-one. In that period, I thought all the quarterbacks threw the ball well, which is what this offense is designed to do. I thought everybody played well. I mean, I would have been excited too, I think, if I were Clay, because we saw some of the young DBs that we haven't seen before, or even the ones that are, second-year guys that haven't, played that much. And it looked like, they can play in terms of what we were seeing today. They don't look like the same guys that, kind of a lot of times didn't exactly seem to be on the right page, with everybody. But I thought it was, I thought it was the kind of practice last year Clay would have been extremely excited about. I think the difference this year is he's playing a different role, and he's not a cheerleader, and his job is to get him there. And he was upbeat about it, but he wasn't over the top. It was, we did some things really well, but it just had a different feel, I think, this year.
Yeah, it didn't seem like they were wasting any time. It felt like if there was no time elapsed between spring and fall, that's kind of what it looked like. They picked up where they left off. But as far as you mentioned the quarterbacks, everyone's looking to see who will be the starting quarterback. Clay reaffirmed that 25 practices is what it might take to name a starting quarterback. Now, we have a little bit of a question about where the 25 practices come in. We've done the math, not sure where that comes in. But Dan, what did you see from the quarterbacks so far today?
Well, I think there is one of the guys that had 11 starts last year, and you talk to his teammates, and they said, well, "What do you see in a JT today?" And they say, "I'm much more confident." The year has really helped him, much more comfortable. He was almost perfect. I think he might have missed one pass. He had what looked like, we're guessing, like a 90-yard pass, and that, right off the bat in the last 11 on 11 to Michael Pittman. That, everybody on the sidelines, the parents, everybody going oohing and on. Yeah. It was just perfect, perfectly thrown and. As you could want it, but I thought they all competed pretty well. I think Keelan Slovis is it's kind of the dark horse always, as the guy you look at and say, man, he just keeps chugging away, and he seems to really understand this offense. Jack Sears always shows you the athleticism and the ability to scramble. I'm not sure, how much of a plus that is in this offense, where I think they really want you to get it out quick and not have to scramble. But and Clay talked about, first day of practice, and he and Graham knew that there were going to be a couple of forced and throws, and I guess with 3 interceptions probably, and 2 by Elijah Griffin, who showed up, and then 1 by Max Williams, who kind of got the first penalty of the day on a late dive on an overthrown ball, one of those ones you go, oh no. And on the next play, the ball goes through Velus Jones's hands, and he's right there, Max is, for an interception. So he didn't let that first play, knock him back. So that was a plus. So I think the guys we talked to were real impressed with freshman DBs, especially who they haven't seen, or freshman wide receivers who maybe they hadn't seen as much in the summer, and thought, wow, those guys can play. The numbers look good.
Yeah, as far as new faces go, freshman wide receiver Munir McLean had a star day today. He had a lot of catches, but he did have one little mistake at the end. It took him out a little bit. He kind of overextended himself. But what did you see from the new faces today?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I thought who we were talking, Amon Ra, who had a class all summer, so he didn't come to any summer workout. So he was like, wow, I hadn't seen these guys, and these guys are pretty good. And again, he talks about it's great to have numbers now, and have, because they were thin in both DBs and wide receivers, and now to have, really good numbers is kind of something they haven't been accustomed to. So I think it's allowing them to, to play faster, practice faster, and that's a great thing for this program, to be able to come out and have the sense that you don't have to hold them back, and you don't have to pace them, and you can just turn them loose and let them go game speed every single time they're out there. I think that will make more difference than we can even realize.
Yeah, and when talking to Vavai Malapaya, he said, today looked pretty fast, but he said it was not fast enough. Graham Harrell always is pushing the pace. When we asked if he asked for numbers at all, Graham Harrell, Vavai said no, just get 6. So it's just getting out there, playing fast, but not hurrying, and that's the difference with this team.
Well, I think on both sides of the ball too. I mean, when you talk about to the defensive guys, what changed or what's different is, yes, it's been simplified a little. Yes, there aren't some of the complexities, but the whole emphasis is just play fast. Don't be thinking, get yourself out there and do everything, at top speed. And I just think they're able to do it. Again, they're able to play fast without looking like they're having to hurry themselves and push themselves and get out of their natural, way they want to play. And I think a lot of that is they did it all spring. I think Amon Ra said, we're accustomed to doing that now, and it doesn't feel like we're pushing ourselves to play fast. And that's the advantage you hope when you get into a game, is that you're able to play at a faster speed, a faster tempo than the people you're playing against, that you're better at doing what you do than they're going to be at stopping that.
You mentioned this position group a couple times already, but the defensive backs, specifically the cornerbacks, that's definitely a position of concern coming into this camp just because of numbers. But it seems like, and you've said it already, but the progress that we've seen from Isaac Taylor-Stewart and Elijah Griffin so far seems like it's made a big difference. So Elijah Griffin had 2 interceptions, like you said. ITS getting work in there, getting first-team reps. What did you see from those guys specifically, but the DBs as a whole? Yeah,
I thought the play that he made on the ball and knocked it loose to Palai'e for another interception, I thought was terrific. And Isaac Taylor-Stewart showing you, he's 6'2", 205 with tremendous, acceleration. Just accelerated right through that ball, right on time. Didn't get there early. And then you throw maybe a Chris Steele into the mix. You've got Elijah was either a 4 or 5 or a high 4 or 5 star. Isaac Taylor was a 5 star. Chris Steele's a 5 star. I mean, you've got more 5 stars there than maybe the whole rest of the Pac-12 secondary. I mean, it's not that the talent isn't there.
Yeah.
You love the way Greg Burns is coaching them. They do look like. I mean, one of the things you noticed today was it just seemed like on so many of the things they were doing on defense, there was somebody whispering in the ear of one of the guys, after a drill or whatever. There just was a lot of, individual coaching going on.
Yeah.
Again, maybe not as much what we've seen as much in years past. So but that was a real plus.
You got to ask Clay Helton after practice about the plan for guys like Chris Steele and Brew McCoy. Now, Brew McCoy was not at practice today. We asked Helton about that, and we said Clay said that Brew is still sick, and we've reported that so far during PRPs, but they just found out that Brew needs to be on antibiotics, and so that will take a week or two, Clay Helton said. We also did see Brew walk past right before we started filming. He gave us a sheepish grin, so not sure about that, but it's TBD for Brew McCoy, but he did report to camp, so he will be here apparently, according to Clay Helton. Chris Steele, what's the plan for him going forward when you don't really know his eligibility?
I mean, it looks like they're just putting him out there, and he was in on the punt return or punt coverage teams and things like that. I mean, it looks like they're kind of not trying to guess whether he's going to be eligible or not. He's out there, not maybe with the first group yet, and I don't know how that changes. If and when they hear about him, but it didn't look like they were making any big issue out of him being here or not being here. And they just, and I will say this, Brew McCoy looks pretty good for a sick guy. And that doesn't he had a hoodie on. It doesn't mean he's not sick. It's just he's such an athletic looking kid. I mean, you look and you say, whoa, that kid looks like, a big time athlete, which he obviously is.
Yeah.
But that's, I think, one of the impressions too. It's still a young team, but they've got a lot of kind of rangy athletes who look like they can run and are real fit now. That have been brought to a place where they weren't last year, and they all will admit it. We weren't there, and who was it talked about? Can't even remember now. No more complaining. No more, just everybody get out there and get the job done, and everybody together. I think there is more of a sense of team with this team.
Yeah.
I think they've built that. Give Aaron Osmus a lot of that credit.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got the most time to work with him, and I think they like the idea of the way that feels compared to what it felt like last year when they kind of weren't together.
Yeah, and Aaron Osmus was the first person that Clay Helton credited in his post-practice presser. But before we move on, I just want to make sure we're not starting any conspiracy theories about Brew McCoy. We just wanted to note about what we saw when he walked past. But as far as other...
We have no thoughts, actually. We really don't. I mean,
we told you all the thoughts we have.
Yeah, because, Clay said it's going to take with the antibiotics, it's going to take a course of antibiotics to get him through this. Because I know the person that asked the question was, well, he was sick earlier in the summer, and now he's still sick. Well, and it sounds like, from what Clay was saying, that maybe they didn't realize what it was they were trying to deal with earlier in the summer, and now they do, and they feel like they've got it figured out and what they have to do, and they hadn't figured it out first.
Yeah. As far as other personnel issues or injury reports, Brandon Peely left practice halfway through due to an undisclosed matter. Jacob Lichtenstein was not at practice, but then came halfway through, not dressed in his helmet, so not sure about that either. We didn't really get a full injury report from Helton today because there's so many other issues to talk about. And then John Jackson was running while catching a pass, looked like he pulled up lame. It looked like his hamstring, so that's TBD. He spent the rest of practice on the trainer's table. And then for the ACL guys like Ethan Ray and Kyle Ford, they were able to do a little bit of stuff, but they mostly did rehabbing on the side, doing some sprints up and down. But other than that, it looked like a pretty clean practice for the Trojans.
Yeah, and I'll give John Jackson a lot of credit. It was on a touchdown pass. He made a great cut, got a great read from JT, and as he beat the defender, and I'm guessing it was a 70-yarder. You could tell when he accelerated is when it popped, and yet he still, he had to be at least at the 40, and he still legged it in and got to the end zone, and then he went down. And it was just a great effort. You just hope it's not something that's going to keep him out, for August, because he went in with the first group on 11 on 11. They've been really impressed with what they've seen from him, in the spring and this summer. Yeah.
It was a limited media availability today, so we only got to talk to a couple players. One of those players was Austin Jackson. We got a status report on how he's feeling. He says he's feeling great, but it was a more extensive process than what usually happens when it's a bone marrow transplant. So he said it will take a little bit longer than usual. But he said his sister, who suffers from Diamond-Blackfan anemia, is doing well. She actually took the bone marrow transplant well from Austin Jackson, and she actually went home a month earlier than expected. So we wish her the best on her recovery. But as far as Austin Jackson goes, he was limited today, did some individual work, but of course was not in the team period. Drew Richmond, actually the Tennessee transfer, filled in for Austin Jackson on that left side. So Drew, Dan, what did you see from Drew Richmond, and what did you hear from Austin Jackson?
I think for Austin, it was interesting because somebody kind of made it sound like he'd kind of be ready to go fairly quickly, right? And he said, well, it's like real surgery. I mean, there's like 3 holes in my back.
Yeah.
This is not just, and he talked about other, football players who've given bone marrow, but not right before the season when they're going to play. So, and in terms of a timetable, he said that would be, for Clay to, disclose, what that timetable is. And Clay, wasn't going to go, and they probably shouldn't go into specifics right now. I think it was good that they could bring Drew Richmond, who's been a right tackle, and bring him in on the left side. I think probably good for Drew. Good for USC to have that kind of a guy ready to go. I just think it's just another case where, and everybody after practice talked about the numbers. Whoa, we got numbers. That would not have turned out as well in the spring because they wouldn't have had the numbers in terms of if you lose an Austin Jackson now, who goes in there? So now you've got a guy that has 20 starts in the Southeastern Conference who's a grad student. So personnel-wise, they feel pretty good about themselves, that they like where they are in terms of numbers at most of the positions.
Yeah. Like I said at the beginning of the video, there's so much to take in on the first day of camp. Lots of new faces, lots of things just to observe. But Dan, any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, I just think the thing you like about this is if you get through practice and you say, and you're thinking what the players are thinking, they probably can't wait to get here tomorrow and see if they can get a little bit better. That is kind of the key difference, I think, is this sense of, okay, that worked and that got us somewhere. Let's see what we can do tomorrow. Yeah. And I don't think we saw a lot of that last year. There wasn't that sense of getting somewhere this day and the next day. And you did hear him saying, I'm not thinking about the end of the week or next week or whatever. I'm thinking about doing as well as I can this practice, and then tomorrow doing as well as I can tomorrow's practice. And that's all I've got control of, and I'm not going to think way down the road as to how this is all going to play out. And so that puts the emphasis on practice, which we didn't think there was as much last year. That we also think that might be why we're not going to, be at practice as much this year. But it's nice that the players are there in that, sense of mind that we're going to accomplish something today. We're going to push ourselves. We're going to get better. That's how you get better. I mean, that if the defense is pushing the offense and vice versa, and they're going, absolutely at game speed and game tempo, you can get a lot done in practice. So I'm remain pretty optimistic about the way they're approaching things.
Yeah, it seems like their goals seem tangible, easier to achieve, and they know what they are at this point. So it will be interesting to see how that progresses, especially that transition from fall camp to the regular season. But that's going to wrap it up for day 1 of USC's fall camp. For Dan Weber, I'm Keely Eure. For more, check out USCfootball.com.